Good day. Today's video is about Figure1. The website is at Figure1, as it the number one. It's on the screen right here. .com. This is a Toronto-based startup, and this startup allows, I believe, verified physicians to post pictures and get feedback from other physicians around the world. Now, before I begin, let me start with a disclaimer that some of the images shared in this video may appear graphic to some viewers. So I will try and not go through all of the images here. That's number one. Same with their Instagram page. Some of the images may appear. I think their Instagram page is like anyone can post here, but I think only the Figure1 team can post images on their page. So if you do log into the app, you may see images that may involve blood, lesions, burns, obviously human physiology, different parts of the human physiology. There are pictures for that. There are all sorts of pictures. There are cuts, burns, and physicians are trying to get feedback on. Sometimes they're trying to maybe come up with a diagnosis. Sometimes they're just asking for opinion. So I was just going through their FAQ, and it looks like there's a mechanism to be by which the verification happens. You register for the account, you fill out a form, and you use the email address of your institution, and then the kind of process kicks in from there. In terms of the discussion, I'm not sure if anyone can actually contribute to the discussion because they have two mechanisms. One is you can download the app through the regular app stores, or the other option is to use a browser, which is what I'm doing. I'm just simply logged in using the browser, but doesn't look like I have the ability to be able to contribute to the discussion. I still like to look at this data set or the discussion. I can say I do this regularly. In fact, I haven't logged into the website in maybe a year and a half, something like that. But I thought it was a great idea when I first started, and I'm going to try and share some more ideas on how maybe from a non-medical perspective, how this could evolve. Again, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I never went to school for medicine, but I think this is a very interesting idea in the domains of crowdsourcing, and it could evolve in very healthy ways. But yeah, this is what the platform looks like. Like I said, anyone can post an image, so you can tag the image with the, particular subject. So in this case is cardiology, and you can provide a little bit of a short description, and that's what's going on here. If you want, you can follow that discussion. You can discuss, save it. I don't know what this thing does. Oh, you can share it. Okay. This one is in the domain of orthopedic surgery. So it looks like an X-ray. Maybe there are more than a couple images. Yeah. And I think there's only two images. Yeah. So there's a description. It doesn't look like the individual is asking for some kind of feedback, but I'm not sure what's going on there. This one is in the domains of dermatology. Looks like eczema. I actually have something like this going on right now in my legs. It was happening on the soft side, like the part across from the elbow, on the other side of the elbow. So I've been making some changes, changing my soap and getting more sunlight and stuff like that. But this one seems worse than what I had. I noticed there was a fair bit of rashes today. Maybe it's typical. And there were some side effects from somebody had a side effect from one of the vaccines as well. I haven't had the vaccines, but anyway, so this one is in the domain of critical care. Looks like a CT scan. Looks like I'm not a doctor. I don't know if they're talking about this or they're talking about. I don't know what they're talking about. They could be talking about. Actually, I'm not gonna comment on this. So, male patient, 15 years old, came to ER. Puffiness in the left eye, respiratory failure in the ICU. CT scan showed this brain edema. What is that? I think let's take a look at what that means. Watery fluid collecting in the cavities or tissue of the body. Oh, okay. So this is not, this is for the brain or the eye? The eyes are an extension of the brain. Okay. So yeah, I'm not gonna go through the other images. Some of them can, like I said, get pretty graphic. The next image is of somebody's portion of their jaw that's been extracted. So yeah, so the discussions, let me click on a discussion, see if I can pull that up. And yeah, there are no discussions here, but usually if somebody posted, the discussions would be somewhere right here. So yeah, this is what the app looks like. This is the FAQ. Right now they have a COVID section. So I didn't check this before clicking on it. So there are some clinical cases here, which I'm not going to review because I didn't review that prior to this recording. So there's some information on COVID. I did notice this. There's some Kawasaki disease happening in New York. 85 children have developed the syndrome, and there's 3 fatalities. Majority of patients have tested positive for SARS-CoV-2 or had a previous infection. So I guess if the symptoms are showing up on the tongue, is that fair to? So yeah, this is the COVID section. I have no idea what this is. Looks like a podcast. I don't know why it's called DDX. DDX is a medical shorthand for differential diagnosis. There's a podcast about how doctors think and learn on the job. Okay. So yeah, links to their social media pages are here. So what I was thinking was, and this is their Instagram. Yeah, like I said, it's curated, so you won't see as much. Yeah, well, depends on like everything. People react differently to different things. So there's, but the app itself has all sorts of issues highlighted, obviously, and it's just kind of rolling in, and people are commenting, and I think this is a very interesting model. It could be very useful in the domains of telemedicine. The little I know about it, and I think there's good work happening in a variety of different areas. I was looking at I've looked at, actually, for some reason, I was looking at telemedicine in India. This came up in my feed on YouTube a couple of years ago. And that was being done because of a shortage of physicians, particularly in the remote areas. So what they did was in India, and I can't find that. I don't think I was logged in when I was reviewing it, but because of the shortage of doctors, what they started doing in India, this is way before COVID. This is like maybe 8 years ago or 5 to 6 years ago at the very least. They started setting up these brick and mortar institutions, and there would be nurses there, and then there would be remote conferencing, and doctors would doctor the doctors would come in remotely, and there would be a nurse on site, and the nurse would follow the doctor's instructions and work with the patient while the assessment happened remotely. And I don't know what other mechanisms were there in terms of machines for diagnosis, but that's what I recall. So there was those were like two components of the system. So I could see Figure1 evolving into a healthy state to be able to assist in when it comes to something like that. The other thing I noticed yesterday was this startup out of Israel. I love this idea. It's just the way it's presented is really cool. So if anyone even remotely follows the developments in the world of deep learning, which I think is a subset of machine learning, it's not the other way around, then I mean, I've heard Jeffrey Hinton say that we should stop training radiologists, and he said this a couple of years ago. So I see what he meant by this. Or I think like we can say that radiologists are going to be empowered to help a lot more patients, or focus more on the patient care, or take on some other activity in addition to the core work they would do, which would be to I don't know how radiology actually works. I don't know how it's different from x-rays, but you can do you can do a scan of somebody's body and be able to I'm not sure if how a CT scan is. I don't know if CT scan is the same as radiology, but anyways, I'm making this video, so I should have done a little bit more due diligence. But I just love the idea. I just love the idea that, oh, yes, what I thought. This is built on deep learning. That this startup has taken a lot of the fuss out of how we do things at the moment. And again, it would be pretty interesting if there was a Figure1 component to something like this, with this and telemedicine. And this is just one of the areas in the domain of how deep learning or machine learning in general could assist in the for diagnosis and beyond. Speaking of which, I stumbled upon this a couple of years ago. DARPA has been working on automating the cancer research aspect, particularly with regards to ingesting journals, peer-reviewed journals. And I don't know how it all works, but I think they can model what's being prescribed in the actual paper, and based on models they built, they can test the effect, like test what's actually being recommended in those papers. So they must have some simulations. They must, through DARPA, I'm assuming they must have simulated how different organs work, different cells work, how blood, there's cancers of different types. So I don't know if they focus on a particular type of cancer. But that's what I believe big mechanism does in a nutshell. I mean, it takes a lot of, like, from an uneducated perspective, I can appreciate that any model that's ingesting papers and making coherent sense out of them and translating that information and then testing it on the models, submodels that already, or the simulations that already exist on that side, it has to be quite robust. And maybe a human and machine collaboration could be leveraged here, so that you have something that's built on the the method through which big mechanism works, or worked. Looks like it's archived. And then you have, that machine aspect. Then humans can come in and you can crowdsource, like, hey, this is looking like a lesion, or this is looking like a rash, starting with things like that, and seeing what kind of diagnosis makes sense. And then you have the machines assist that from the perspective of diagnosis. That's just diagnosis, and this goes way beyond diagnosis. This actually goes towards testing some of the mechanisms that have been highlighted in the research paper. But you could have something like that. You could have that human and machine angle to just in terms of better efficiencies, scaling different models to be able to provide more healthcare, quality healthcare to more individuals. I think something like this could be really useful. So it frees up that bottleneck, right? That you have the traditional hospital, traditional clinic, and then you have doctors in there, and then there's a patient to doctor ratio. And some of that workload can be reduced or made a lot more efficient with the use of technology, because doing how we've done things manually in the past takes up a lot of time. So things like technology is built on top of deep learning or ML, machine learning in general, leveraging crowdsourcing. Maybe there's something else. I shared an idea with AI Doc folks on their YouTube page, saying that they must be collecting a fair bit of data. And as the information, the research angle gets better, newer models could be applied to existing data set in order to be able to find these correlations, like what, cause and effect kind of relationships. So their data set could actually be quite useful now in the future. Anyways, my short video today was on the on Figure1, and I believe Figure1 is a is a. I applied for a job at Figure1 at some point. My skill set didn't meet their requirements at that time. This goes back 5 or 6 years ago. But I truly think that it's a very innovative idea. I've been engaged in something related to crowdfunding for as far back as I can remember. There was a company used to be called Cambrian House. I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about here. And they would crowdsource the mechanism through which ideas are generated, something to that effect. This goes back 15 years or longer. And yeah, that's when I first actively got involved with crowdsourcing projects, or projects built on top of crowdsourcing. And obviously, in between that time frame, we've seen the emergence of a lot of different models, all the way from Wikipedia to Linux to even like the whole crypto movement, open source in general. It's Well, you could argue, well, Unix came first, or the precursor to Unix, or but I think this is something very interesting, and I have a feeling, I could be wrong, but I think this I think is hinting towards something. This is going a little off topic, but I think this is hinting towards something, and I just think of a time when 1 billion people are going to come online, and how many of those individuals are going to be doctors and scientists and engineers and philosophers and ethicists. And I think the world is going to change, and this is why we are invested in healthcare, and it's an audacious project. So I don't want to talk about myself. Let's come back to the topic. I think Figure1 is a phenomenal idea, executed really well, and I think it could evolve in a lot of different ways, in a very healthy ways. Try to share some ideas to that effect. Yeah, this is my short video about Figure1. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.